Hi, my name is Fraser, and I'm going to show you a comparison between the Quicksilver Chrome and the Quicksilver Gold. Now, if any of you worked with this before, you know you don't need any reducer for it, and that's the nice part. It's literally right out of the bottle into your airbrush. Now, I do recommend you give it a shake. You'll hear a little rattle ball inside there, so give it a good shake. Agitate it up a bit. The metallic in here will settle to the bottom over time, especially if it's been sitting for a while. And then just pour it right in your airbrush. Like I said before, no reducer necessary. Make sure your airbrush is really clean, because if you have other colors in here, this will reactivate it and show it. Give it a little extra shake in there, a little test spray, and I'm ready to start spraying. I'm going to actually do a comparison between the gold and the chrome on this panel right here. And so this flame I've got already laid out. Did it all with FBS, the new blue fine line, as well as the gold tape. And I come in with a real light coat. Now, you don't want to come with this too wet. It can mottle, and it can actually fisheye if you really spray too much on at once, because any paint that has too much moisture on it will literally break up if you spray it. And I use a little bit of air to just dry it faster. Now, the Quicksilver can be sprayed a couple of different ways. You can use it like this, where you're coming in and just spraying a bare aluminum, like a raw aluminum look. If you want to go with the chrome look, you're going to actually be going over a reflective surface like the gloss black. We're not doing that today. I just want it to have a burnished, flat aluminum look to it. Keep on spraying the air on it. You can actually see it at an angle as it starts to dry. You'll see the moisture leaving it. By the way, don't use heat. The best way to dry this paint is with air motion. Always has been. Another light coat. I'm not doing full trigger pulls, by the way. This is a TH Iwata, and it is designed to spray a fan pattern, but it's small, but this thing can really honk out a lot of material. So I'm only going half trigger on this, with about 35 PSI. And one final coat here. You can even use this where you can get a base color down and then continue hitting the tips until it gets brighter and brighter. And then it'll actually give you a cool fade effect. So it's really neat about this, this aluminum, the Quicksilver. Unlike other metallics, you can actually create a fade effect in it. Eventually you'll get to the point where it's ceilinged out, and it'll have just one consistent color, one tone. It won't get any brighter or any darker at all. And at that point, you want to stop. But until then, you can actually use it for a lot of different cool effects and techniques. I'm going to clean my airbrush out and go to the Quicksilver Gold. The amount of volume of the Quicksilver you spray will also determine the drying time. I gave this about 10-15 minutes to fully dry before I turned and removed this masking and put it on the other side. Now, if you're going to mask directly on the Quicksilver, I would give it actually a little bit more time, like maybe as much as a half hour or an hour, depends on how large of an area and how much you're spraying. So I got this nice and masked off and protected. I'm going to come in and spray the Quicksilver Gold Chrome. Just like the Quicksilver Chrome, you do not need to add any reducer, but you do need to give it a good shake and mix it up. And remove the cap on the inside. Makes it a lot easier to pour when it doesn't have the seal on the inside. There we go. And fill the airbrush up. I already cleaned this brush out. Even though they're very similar materials, I didn't want any of the silver to affect the gold. You could always actually combine the two to create like a very pale gold or a slightly gold tinted silver. I just wanted the pure gold to be coming through on this one. Same exact technique, going to come in and spray even pattern across the whole piece, half trigger, and then blowing air. Just blowing the air on it helps it dry. I don't know if you can see from the camera. I can see from the angle I'm at when it starts to dry, and it's getting a little dry enough for another coat. And come in, another panel. And if you wonder what my overlap is on here, I'm doing approximately a 1/2 to a 3/4 overlap. And it's not a full, it's not like I'm using a spray gun. I'm going to just waving it side to side. This is a small object. When working on a large area, you want to be very precise in your laying down the pattern, otherwise you'll see streaks. Now eventually you can get rid of the streaks by building this up enough color, because this will sealing out eventually. But if you're going to do a real light version, be very careful on your spraying technique, because you will see the patterns at different angles. And that's good and dry. So I'll come in with another coat. Now I'll be more Careful on this one, on the overlap. So you see I'm not fanning the gun, I'm actually moving the whole gun now. There we go. And continue blowing the air. Don't want to get too close. If the paint's really wet and you get really close, you'll mottle it. And you don't want to do that. Now, if you do mottle it and it dries, it may go away. If you see any of that mottling, don't worry about it. Come in with another coat. And usually just one coat of the Quicksilver or the gold will take care of that. Very, very forgiving stuff. Not to mention, when it's fully dry, you can mask on it, which many of these other aluminum type paints, you cannot mask on without them literally pulling up half the paint. This stuff you can mask on, very durable, sticks to quite a number of elements out there. It requires very little prep. If anything, you want to be careful on prepping. When spraying these Quicksilvers, if you do any scuffing or sanding, a lot of times that'll transfer in. So if you want a perfectly smooth panel, be careful on how you're prepping or sanding. If you scuff it with something very coarse, you'll see those lines. Now that's kind of a cool technique or a trick, and we can show you that in another video. But understand that the way you prep it will affect the outcome. So sometimes if you've never used it before, always give it a little bit of a shot, ahead of time, do a little test panel. We're going to let this dry, and then I'm going to unmask it. We'll compare both the Quicksilver Chrome and the new Gold Chrome. I've given the Quicksilver Chrome and the Quicksilver Gold a couple minutes to dry, probably like 5-10 minutes, and then went ahead and unmasked it. If I'm going to mask on top of this, I would definitely want to give it probably at least an hour. But the gold's on there really good. You can touch it. It's not going to come off on it. And you don't need to do any additional prep. I can come on top of it with another color, layer a candy on it, or I could even just clear coat it. So I want to show you the two different looks there. You got the nice silver, the nice gold, and this is actually not just a pigment added to it. This is actually a gold metallic that's in suspension in the actual paint itself. So it's a great comparison between the silver and the gold, not just for a final effect, but really great base for other effects you may want to do in the future. My name is Craig Fraser, and I will talk to you next time.